So far, all of the segues we've defined haven't required that we pass any data back and forth. But of course, before our detail view can display the album details, it first needs to know which album the user has selected. So in this lesson, we'll look at how we can pass data from one scene to another. So I have our storyboard open, and I want to look at the segue that we've created from our list view to our detail view. We need to give this thing an identifier, and I'll call this show details. We can assign an identifier to a segue, and this will allow us to distinguish between segues in our code. As a given scene can define multiple segues, we need an easy way to distinguish between those, and having this identifier will allow us to do that. So let me switch to the music list view controller. And at the bottom, I'm going to override a method called prepare for segue sender. And this method gets invoked immediately prior to executing that segue, and this allows us to do whatever setup that we need to do. I'm first going to query the segue itself and ask it for its identifier. And if that identifier is equal to show details, then we want to execute the following code. A little space in here so we can see this a little more easily. If show details is the segue that the user has chosen, we then want to find out which row the user selected. So I'm going to define an NS index path, and I'm going to ask the table view for its index path for the selected row. I'll then look up the associated album from our albums collection. So I'll ask for the object at indexpath.row. And I then need to set that on the controller instance. Let me import the album details controller. And then I'll ask the segue for a reference to it. And I can do that by calling segue destination view controller. This is where the segue will transition to. And now that I have an instance of that, I can set its album property to the album I just looked up. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's run the app and see how things look. Select view list. And success. Let's go back and try another one. We're now able to view album details, and that's a big win as we've completed one of the core features of the app. You should now understand how to pass data between scenes in a storyboard-based app.